Bitcoin recently hit a new all-time high. It's doing very well as of right now, but does that mean I'm going to be buying that instead of Algorand's native token called Algo? Absolutely not. Algo is a much better pick for me, even though nothing I say is financial advice. And when it comes to the idea of $5, that's still on my mind. I still believe in that. But here's the thing, right? If I were to FOMO into Bitcoin as of right now, that would kind of make no sense because, yes, I get it. A lot of people out there are in profit and they're feeling pretty good, right? When compared to many people out there who are generally speaking holding a bunch of altcoins and maybe some does well, some others don't. It doesn't look like a really good portfolio. In some cases, it may seem like. So then a lot of people are like, oh, we need to jump into Bitcoin. Now, I can't control anyone. I'm not telling anyone to buy algo. But the way you take a look at it is that imagine if algo, right, went to the price of like $1.50 or whatever, or even $2. And I'm like, oh yeah, time to FOMO all into this. Wouldn't really make sense because imagine all the hypothetical gains lost along the way. It's very similar to Bitcoin right now. As a best case scenario, Bitcoin could maybe reach the price of $300,000, but that's slightly under a 3x from here. So what am I going to do right now, right? Oh, randomly put all into Bitcoin? No, it makes no sense to me. In my opinion, the idea was to get into Bitcoin a long time ago, right? But then since I didn't do that, why would I do that right now? I would much rather choose something like Algo. I get it. When it comes to Bitcoin, it's still going to be around 50 years later, in my opinion. When compared to many other, let's say projects out there, we don't know if they're going to be even around the next cycle. I'm not saying Algorand's like that, by the way. I'm saying it's very amazing. But the way you take a look at it is that, yes, even though Algo may seem like a quote unquote less, safe play, at least to many people, I still prefer this because $5, keep in mind, is around a 22x from here. Again, Bitcoin isn't even doing a 10x during this bull run, let alone over a 20x, in my opinion. In order for Algo to do a 3x, it's kind of easy peasy, actually. Imagine if the altcoin season really just kicked into even like third gear or whatever. Like, that seems like easy peasy again. Now, there's no guarantees here, but the way you take a look at it is that it doesn't seem that difficult to me. Also, when I take a look at Algorand, sometimes people like to say that, oh, you know what, man? This is a bad layer on blockchain. It sucks and all this. Well, okay, I get it. It's not as popular as like Ethereum. A lot of people really love Solana. They think BNB is fantastic. And I get all that. They are very good. But if you take a look at Algorand, doesn't mean it really loses out though, because it's very fast in my opinion, very scalable. Gas fees are not a problem. Not to mention as well, we take a look at how Algorand is currently the technology of choice for over 2,000 global organizations. I mean, this is how amazing Algorand is. Not to mention it's carbon neutral. Very amazing in my opinion, because a lot of enterprises nowadays, they want to go green. So I think this right here is really going to help maybe attract future potential enterprise partnerships in the future. Who knows? So when I take a look at Algorand, it's very fantastic. Its ecosystem, I think, it still has ways to go, right? But it doesn't really matter because during a fully fledged bull run, people don't really care about current adoption, in my opinion. Like, if current adoption was the main factor, many projects in the top 100, they wouldn't really be there. A lot of them, in my opinion, don't have good adoption whatsoever, but they still do well. And I think it's because of three main reasons. First of all, it's a very strong, passionate, and dedicated community, which I do see that when it comes to Algorand, so that's a good start, right? Not to mention a lot of these projects, they're listed in very amazing exchanges. Algo is listed in many amazing exchanges. Not to mention as well, the project is unique, interesting, and cool. Now, is Algorand the coolest thing out there of all time? I wouldn't say so, but for what it is very cool indeed, because it's a very unique layer on blockchain that, isn't the most flashy, but it is fundamentally amazing. And I think a lot of people are looking for that, right? I think sometimes people want alternatives beyond Ethereum or whatever. And here's the thing as well. Algorand actually kind of shares a trait, in my opinion, believe it or not, when compared to something like Ripple and Stellar. Now, some people may be thinking, whoa, that's a stark contrast, man. But just think about it, right? Ripple and Stellar, they have aspects of ISO 20022. Algorand has that too. Now, we think about why this is amazing. It's because, through that, again, right, ISO 20022, I think it really brings more attention to these type of projects and showcases that, they could very well be projects that could maybe in the future be integrated in the financial sector in a very massive way, because ISO 20022, that's currently being used by many financial institutions from all around the world for something called inter-organizational data exchange. So that's not really expected when it comes to Algorand. That's kind of like, I would say like the hidden magic trick or whatever the analogy is when compared to Algorand, because oftentimes people think, oh, Algorand, it's another layer on blockchain, a little bit boring, but really the ISO 20022 part, I like that. It's not something that people really, sometimes really care about, but if they care about that when it comes to Ripple, if they care about that, right, again, when it comes to Stellar, I don't see why I wouldn't care about it here. This is just my opinion. The way I take a look at Algorand as of right now is that it kind of feels like a Solana, but last cycle. You know what I mean? Because last cycle, Solana became a very big project, but then people were a little bit like kind of iffy when compared to like, what could this really do, right? Is this going to have good adoption? But as of right now, we're seeing immense adoption, especially in the retail side of things when it comes to Solana. But when it comes to Algorand, we haven't really seen that yet, at least in a massive scale like that, right? So I kind of feel like Algorand feels a little bit like Solana, but last cycle, like basically -1 cycle, which I don't think is a bad thing. Being a watered down version a little bit of Solana when it compared to the attention and whatnot, it doesn't seem so bad, especially considering how well it did. And think about this, right? $5, I don't think is even that crazy, because at a market cap of around $43 billion, which it would have if it were to go to that price, considering current circulating supply, I don't think this is too insane, because let's say during a fully fledged bull run, something like Bitcoin went to around a $6 trillion market cap. Let's say the price is around 300,000. Let's say Ethereum went to around 2 trillion. Even just from those two projects, that's a combined market cap in this make-believe scenario of like 8 trillion. So in a trillion, if we consider how that's 1,000 billion, that's 8,000 billion, right? Why can't like around 43 billion of that, let's say if that does happen, flow into this? You know what I mean? Now, when is altcoins really going to pump in a massive way, at least go into a fifth gear type of bull run, right? I think it's going to take some time, but some people may think, oh, are you talking about years down the line? Here's the thing. In the world of cryptocurrencies, we're not talking about sometimes when it comes to the horizon of 10, 20, 30 years. Sometimes things move very quickly. We're not talking about the S&P 500 here. We're not talking about, stocks or some boring stocks, right? I should say, or some, random thing. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about gold. We're talking about cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin, the largest cryptocurrency out there, take a look at how fast that moved. So during a fully fledged type of altcoin season, imagine how something like Algo could move, right? We've seen it historically happen in the past. So let's say when people say, oh, 6 months from right now, that's too short of a time frame for things to happen. Well, in the world of cryptocurrencies, not really, actually. And again, as of right now is Bitcoin's time, but if that Bitcoin dominance drops and we see that massive altcoin season really kick in, could you imagine what's going to happen to something like Algo? Again, only time will tell, but $5 wouldn't surprise me whatsoever. And make sure to subscribe if you gain value from this video. I greatly appreciate it. It's Malik the Captain, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.